Okay, so today is the story about the Stephen Covey demonstration, right?
One of my favorites.
One of your favorites. So, I mean, you know who Stephen Covey is. Like, why don't you say
Oh,
the name of the book that he wrote in like the late 90s that literally everybody has heard of from Stephen Covey?
oh my gosh, there's
You're
so
blanking on it, right? Because it's
you're right,
live.
I am blanking on
But
it,
yeah,
thank you.
he wrote a few, but I mean, Seven Habits of Highly
7
Effective,
Habits of Highly Effective People.
and like hardly you'd be hard pressed to find anyone, at least anyone in Generation X and Baby Boomer generation, who hasn't at least heard of the title of the book, right? And I'm not going to go over like what's in the book, but he does do or came up with a pretty interesting demonstration that he used to do in live events. And you can just literally go to YouTube and type in Stephen Covey rocks sand or some variation of that, and
Yep,
a bunch of these kind of videos are going to come up, right? Either people have remade it or it's one of his original ones and so on. But for anyone who's not familiar with it, how it works is he has these two sort of, and you can see it sort of like two big pails or buckets or mason jars on steroids or something, depending on which version of the video you see. And he's got his sort of like, sometimes he's got sand and sometimes he's got this sort of like green small pellets that are representing sand. And then he's also got these sort of fist size rocks, and the rocks have little stickers or stuff written on them like family and career and spirituality and education, like the big important things in life, the priorities in life.
exactly.
And he usually has a volunteer, takes the volunteer up on stage, and he pours all the sand. The sand represents sort of like all of the other tiny, unimportant, distraction-y kind of things in life, right? And he pours it in, and then he says, "Okay, go ahead and put your rocks, your priorities, into the bucket." And the idea is, of course, they will actually literally fit, no problem. But it's an awful lot of work to sort of like screw them down through the sand and stuff. It's way more work than it should be. I think one of the sort of corollary lessons there is if you let your day and life fill up with just the sand of life, then you would have to put in a lot of effort and willpower to, pay attention to and focus on your priorities. So then what he and I'm always looking at these kind of I help a lot of speakers, right, and a lot of presenters and write a lot of webinars and stuff,
Mm,
and a lot of like copywriting copy. So I'm always looking at these things and like wondering how it would apply, right? The second part of the demo is he has the volunteer put in the priority, the big rocks first, and then he pours in the sand, and of course the sand just fills every crack and crevice, and everything fits ultimately, right? You see in the lower right hand the picture that everything fits. So that's the lesson. That's sort of where he leaves it. Uh, the challenge about what he did was that, let's see, can we move here? Yeah, there's a sort of a gap there. What he wasn't, I mean, he was, I think, a pretty good speaker, right? He's obviously done that
he's a
presentation a
great
lot,
speaker.
right? And and an insightful author, and I think he was sort of like a management or a consultant or a coach.
You know what
And
else I like about him?
what's that,
He's a good-looking bald guy like us.
dude? What can you say, right? But he sort of, his demonstration goes so far, and it goes to the limit of, that was sort of like his first right answer or his second right answer, like we talk about, right? There's always
Mhm.
a second right answer. And so we have the benefit of like standing on top of his shoulders and going further. But there's a gap there that he sort of doesn't go that extra step in his messaging,
Mhm.
mainly because, he wasn't a copywriter, he wasn't a marketer, he wasn't talking to marketers and people who sort of develop positions for companies and stuff. So he left that gap there, and the gap was this, right? If you look at it this way, if you stop at a red light in traffic, everyone else that's in the car with you, everyone in the cars and the buses next to you, right? All the pedestrians, everyone shopping in the shops, everyone eating in the restaurants, everyone living in the apartments, like everybody around you is living this sort of complex life just like yours, and their sort of backstory and history and what they're going through on the daily struggle, in the world, it's equally, it's comparable to yours, and yet you're not a part of their story and they're not a part of yours. I mean, you're barely even adjacent, and only for a few moments at this red light, and then you sort of split off. And so
Mm.
everyone's life is full already, uh, either full of their priorities, full of other people's priorities that were imposed on them in case of a job or whatever, and all of the sort of distractions and small stuff of life. And we're super great. We get to fool ourselves. Or this is sort of the other half of the problem. Not realizing that everyone's life is full. Like, you can understand it on an intellectual level, but to actually literally understand that everyone's life is full. And so the compounding for the problem that I'm about to talk about for marketers and small businesses and copywriters and so on is that we're also individually quite good at picking up on patterns, right? We can see a face burned into a slice of toast. We can look at clouds and think that they look like an airplane or anything else, right? We're really good at tricking ourselves into that kind of stuff. And so it's possible to fit everything in there and take the lesson, which is a great life lesson about putting your priorities first and letting the rest of life, fill in around you. But to take it a step further, when I talk to clients, for instance, the main sort of thrust that they have is they're trying to figure out what do they want to say, and then how should they say it. And that seems like, from a marketing or even sales point of view, that seems like the question to ask, right? I mean, of course, it's the most obvious one. It's kind of the first right answer of the whole thing is, what do I want to say to my prospects, to my market, to my audiences, whatever. And then once I decide on what I'm going to say and what's important to me and make sure that they understand it and are exposed to it, how do I say it? Like, what's the best way to say it? The problem, of course, is this is exactly the wrong thing to do, right? I'll sometimes show up and people will already know kind of what they want to say. But the challenge for it is that if they start there, then they'll say, like, can you make what we want to say, better or even good? And the answer is yes, usually. Like, you can make it better. You can even make it good, but you can't make it great, because they're acting as if what they want to communicate is going to be a rock in someone else's life. And that doesn't work, because we're not rocks in other people's lives. Our companies are not rocks in other people's lives.
That's for sure.
Instead, the question that you need to ask, if you're going to go beyond just being good and being like great in your marketing message, in your sales message, is what do they care about? And how do I align what I want to say with what they care about? There's no way to get from what you want to say and communicate to great if you're starting off thinking that you're the rock in someone's life instead of you're the sand. But we're the sand in everyone else's life, right? There are a small number of people, maybe for most of us, in our life where we're a rock, right? There's a rock called family, and we're in that, or friendship or whatever. But for 99 point however many nines you want to put after that, we're sand in other people's lives, right? We're someone in a car and they're in a bus, and it's the way it is. And so you have to start with, what do they care about? What will they pay attention to? And then your job is to figure out, or in a lot of cases, my job is to figure out for someone what someone cares about, their sort of target audience cares about. How are we going to align with that, so that while we understand we're always going to be a piece of sand, if we work at it, we can attach ourselves to one of the rocks. And that's as close as you can get, right, to sort of having a big impact on someone's life. You have to put aside your ego about what you want to say, and therefore the best way to say it. And instead, think about the audience, put yourself in their shoes, in their mindset, and then work backwards to how you might align to it, so that you already fit into something that they want, or you figured out a way to be novel about in a way that they would care about. So that was, I must have watched, John, I think I must have watched that demo on YouTube. Maybe I watched it over and over and over, right? And like a lot of things, the first few times it's like, interesting concept, right? Interesting moral, interesting story. But then, how like you look at something and like, there's something that's not happening here. Like, it's even hard to put your finger on, where's the last piece of this? Right. And
Right.
I watched it a few times, and then, sort of, did one of the long walk kind of thing and said, I know what he stopped. He didn't tell anyone in the audience how to do what he just did. He gave them the lesson, but he
Right.
didn't explain, as far as I can tell, he's never explained and of course he's passed on now.
Yes.
Right? But he did the same thing, right? He thought about what would resonate with this audience, and then figured out how to communicate what he wanted to say in a way that aligned with one of their rocks.
Yes.
But then he actually made the demo, instead of ever explaining how he came up with the demo, which is a great demo. One of the reasons it's a great demonstration in any sort of speech or workshop or whatever he's doing in that video is because he worked through to the second right answer. He started with, what will they care about? What's going to resonate with them? And then how can I attach my piece of sand to one of their big rocks? And anybody who's going to pay to be in an audience for Stephen Covey, obviously the sort of main themes that he wrote about, that's already an audience that's predisposed to that kind of demo. So that's why one of the reasons it works so well. But I mean, he did a great job on that, but he never actually explained, like, if you want to do what I do and, help move the needle and create change in your audience, then here's how I made this demo that resonates so well with you. I think that would have been a fascinating video. Who knows? He would have advanced marketing by 20 years in one demonstration if he had explained what he was doing there, because he has such a big audience.
Yeah, well, he had a different purpose in mind when he did it.
Yes.
But I mean, the thing that I love about it is there's so many great life lessons in it. We really have no idea what's going on in other people's lives unless we ask or become part of that. And like you said, attach yourself to the rock. But the other things that are pretty amazing about it is, it's hard to it shows it's hard to stand out. We're just a grain of sand. We have to do something very unusual. We have to align ourselves with others. We have to
right. I mean, the
collaborate.
Sort of classic example would be, I'm going to interrupt people over and over, and I'm going to interrupt enough people so that I will accidentally end up aligning with one of their rocks.
Yeah.
Right. And instead, you can usually, there's a video that I put out a few weeks ago, right? Just like a bunch of slides. There's no voiceover or anything, right? And one of the sort of lessons learned for creatives on that slide is that you can either think it through, like use brain power and imagination to think through how to get to the sort of positive future, the results that you want, or you can run a whole bunch of small experiments, or you can spend a crap ton of money. Those are your three options. Most companies opt for option 3. Say, we have money, we'll just spend money, instead of trying to think through and imagine how we can do something that's different, novel, aligns with what that audience is looking for or will pay attention to, and so on. So there's nothing wrong with the experiments option either. That's great. That's a lot of fun. But if you can, it's way cheaper to just think it through and let your imagination play.
Absolutely.
All right, this is a short one today. Thank you, Stephen Covey, wherever you are.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
Great demo, had a big impact on me. Too bad, I was happy that looking at it often enough, I managed to figure out the piece that was missing, and it was super helpful in my own career. That's for sure.
It is super helpful. It's a great message in a lot of different ways. And I just want to give a shout out to my friend Mark Hunter, who's watching. How you doing, Mark?
Hey. All right, I think that's it for me. Anything for you?
No. Thanks for this though. It's like I said, great lesson on so many levels. So
yeah, we're not going to be doing this tomorrow for travel related reasons, but we'll be back on Monday.
See you on Monday.
And I will mention that we do a lot of we've just started, of course, but we're doing a lot of alternate ideas and new lessons around communication and messaging and marketing and sales. And so do subscribe. We don't send out very many emails to try to make them count. I'm not going to flood anyone's inbox, but do subscribe at thisaudiencemeansbusiness.com. And that way we provide links, especially if you're normally seeing us on LinkedIn. Right now, we're on LinkedIn and Facebook and YouTube all at the same time. But it's very hard to find a video on LinkedIn afterwards. It's almost impossible. So you can't search for videos.
Almost.
So yeah, really, right? You can't search for videos at all. You can't even say, don't show me videos. You get what you get. So we're providing links to all of those videos so that it's easy for people after the fact. I might be interested in that one. I'll click. I'm not interested in that one. I'll skip it and so on. But at least you'll have it there. Exactly. And that's it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.